Hey, my name is John, and I wanted to share a bit about how I think about building solutions, designing the customer experience, and then bringing those to market. We'll cover is version 2, how we move from selling features to selling solutions, and version 3, how we took some of those core solutions personas and designed a super delightful end-to-end customer experience. Selling solutions, how do we do it? At the time, I was wearing the hat of a sales or a solution engineer and partnering really closely with Joe, who's wearing the hat of an account executive. What we're starting to do at times, instead of just demoing the generic coda, is going through a deeper discovery process and starting to prototype some of these solutions. We had just launched our enterprise plan, and within a few months, we had closed Pinterest, Netflix, Coinbase, and Buck. What we realized we needed to do was have a professional services function. I raised my hand to spin up a solution studio, a team of solution architects to design, build, and deploy these solutions with our enterprise clients. With Pinterest, we sold a company-wide workspace and rolled out OKRs with Anne, who's the chief of staff, Grant, who was a TPM, Amit, who was leading at BizOps, and Naveen, who was their chief product officer. Through the sales and discovery process, we learned something which is super common. You may have experienced this as well. You have 100 docs and Google Sheets, and you're holding together with bubblegum, duct tape, and a ton of app scripts. When they're sharing these docs with us, you got a few sheets here, you got a few sheets over there, and then the sheets just kept on coming. Every single department and team had their own sheet, and they're manually rolling it up or running scripts to keep it all together. We have these mission strategy items at the top, and they come down to goals all the way to a cadence and a monthly ritual for accountability, like status updates. I created this lightweight mock, which is getting into the data on how we would set it up. And during those first few weeks, we dove deep to set up the architecture. We got some lightweight mocks, what this thing looked like, a ton cleaner than Google Sheets, used for every person. Here's another view of what the UI looked like. Hannah and myself rolling this thing out to a small group within the shopping pillar. Here's Anne, who's the chief of staff, who was rolling it out with us in a Q&A brown bag session. That week that we're launching OKRs with the product design and engineering team, the CEO at Pinterest was like, hey, I have a ton of PowerPoint docs. What if I transition those into Coda? It's much more delightful. People are getting into it, excited about it. He called an audible. He threw everything into Pinterest 2021 strategic plan and shared it with the entire company. Just to give you a sense on the volume of folks that came in the next 2 weeks, here's our small beta group. And we had this wall of folks coming in that we did not plan for. And Pinterest immediately jumped to our 4th largest client in all of history within a 2-week period. And you might be thinking to yourself, whoa, that's amazing. Success, ton of people in, MRR, new users, GAUs. What do you think happens next? Smooth sailing or a ton of WTF? If you're clicking on all of the above except one, you are correct. Next day, we get some lengthy emails from IT and InfoSec saying, WTF? This wasn't planned at all. Our bill just jumped. There's a ton of new use cases and this isn't locked down or secure. We need to fix this. What we did was just went back and forth, hopped on Zooms, raised the flags, put all of these into a backlog, P0 all the way to P4, and burned through, helped them out. What we also got was a ton of user feedback. We only launched OKRs, this goal setting framework, to small teams. Now this was an entire department, a ton of learnings within those first few weeks on how to design these systems and roll them out. By May, we turned it around. We have a neutral IT InfoSec. We're able to burn through most of their P0s, and if not, put it on the roadmap. And we're winning the CEO and CPO for high-level integrations and updates, and the chief of staff and BizOps for how people actually interact with the tool, and now they're able to align teams. When I hear that from different roles, ton of positive, different departments, I think this is the case study, or at least an internal success story. I sat down with Naveen, their CPO, went through a model for how to think about some of the efficiencies gained and got to an actual dollar amount. A few months later, we were able to wrap that up into an official case study on our website. This was an anchor case study with key metrics that are called out and key calls to action. What happened with both that case study as a marketing tool as well as enabling the sales team around the stories is we were able to win a ton more accounts around the same use case with different partners, Robinhood, Coinbase, Noob, and Opportune, just to name a few. All right, we're starting to win these larger accounts with some of these key use cases like OKRs. What about the end-to-end experience? Two questions that came out. One was, how do we get more people into the funnel? Because we're noticing this bottleneck from discovery and awareness. And then how could we do this self-serve and scale it rather than having an account executive in the room pitching? And so what I did was I spun out the solution studio into professional services, and I went over to lead our solution marketing effort. When I think about the users of Coda being a no-code or low-code tool, I often think about this I build software continuum. And what I mean is people who normally build software tools are called real developers, people who got a CS major or are programmers by nature. And then what we noticed by releasing these no-code tools that are more like drag and drop, visual development interface, is you get this entire new group of citizen developers, makers of tools, designers of process that get quite excited about your solution. Though real developers are maybe like 1 or 2% of the workforce, and citizen developers are 3 or 4, you have more than 90% of them are most knowledge workers, aka end users. When I first joined Coda, we had this slogan that everyone is a maker. Developers are makers, knowledge workers are makers. We're a Silicon Valley company. We work with a ton of product design and engineering teams. Everyone wants to build software. What I started realizing working really closely with teams, especially as you move out of Silicon Valley and from product development software companies to professional services to manufacturing, is not everyone wants to make software. And that is totally okay. What I was hearing from this very large 90% group, but even from some of these other personas, is, can I just use your tool? Can I start with a solution to my problem and then maybe I can build and iterate after that? I like to illustrate, and I also like to cook. I was thinking a ton about how we package and sell Coda in regards to how we cook and package food in restaurants, and bentos kept on coming up. And I shared it with the team. We had a small leadership offsite, worked closely with Shashir, Jeremy, and David to create this concept of what would Coda feel like if it was more solution oriented, if we packaged it more like bentos, and instead of selling features like the individual dishes. Here's a glimpse into that internal presentation. The big problem is many people see Coda as a set of building blocks, but they really struggle to see solutions to the problems. What if we move from these raw ingredients like soybeans and rice into more composed ingredients and then built dishes out of them that were really easy to consume and also pay more for? In Coda world, raw ingredients would be like a document, a table, a formula. Ingredients might be the little pieces like an integration with Figma or Asana, or a table to help track things. And a dish would be like real things that you can actually pull off and use, like that OKR solution from Pinterest or product roadmaps and launch calendars. Bentos was the internally named packaging idea where you could sell to a product persona. You would have things like guides, pre-packaged use cases, integration, and case studies like Pinterest OKRs or Figma's product roadmap. And you would have all that social proof, well, integrations and solutions right there across the entire customer journey. Have it in a gallery where they can download. You would have it on landing pages that you will share with folks who are outbounding prospects or advertisements. You can see some of the same stuff recomposed across the page. Maybe when they're in the product itself, anytime they click on a new doc, that can come up as a recommendation for how to use the tool. Maybe they're using Coda for Wiki, but not for a few of these other use cases. And things like onboarding emails or resurrection emails can have that same content just remixed and repurposed across the funnel. What we did is partner with some of the solution architects, but also a new group of product marketers. And we built out those bentos. On the land side, what this ended up feeling like, this is the gallery taking some of those conceptual mocks and building it out. We created the product team hub, which was a way for product teams to run and all those use cases built together, and users can come in self-serve, copy the doc, and all those little pieces are basically options. In this case, a crypto payments team can use it for a product tracker, PRDs. Maybe they're not ready to run their stand-ups into them. They have a new doc that they can run with. We saw hundreds of product hubs starting to come out of this self-service, as well as the webinars and some of the promotion around it. We continued winning more tech companies, but what was really exciting for me is we started moving into more traditional industries. So moving into business services with Deloitte, Accenture, PwC, and landing in these dedicated internal incubator or product teams within the CPG space, like Nike, Loblaw, and Yum. Those stories and that logo wall ended up really solidifying the message around Coda being for, Fortune 100s, for the enterprise. You can do these really rich solutions, not only for teams, but for full departments. On the expand side, we're landing in these product teams with a little bit of design and engineering, but we're looking for ways to move out into different departments like marketing, sales, success, and support. What I did was I partnered with our customer-facing team, and we started building these grids of where we were landing and providing value and new use cases that we can go and branch into. We started creating content and a CSM quarterly conversation with clients about exploring new use cases and other department usage, because Codis is super horizontal product that you can build basically any business process on. And from that, we're seeing that revenue retention go up and remain really high within those expand accounts. To recap, it's always landing with a persona, an ICP, really understand the user, figure out a way to sell a solution to bring them to market instead of selling features, then designing an experience, offloading some of that hands-on manual work to be more self-service. How do you design for humans? How do you put the end user and some of their needs around the business at the forefront of what you end up building? How do you use that to then drive innovation and ultimately increase business value on the back end? Thanks for watching my presentation. If you would like to see version 2 and 3 of what I presented here and look through the slide deck, as well as V1 and V4 of solution building and design, I've included the link to the presentation down there in the video description. Comment and let me know what was most interesting for you. Thanks.